It is not whether you're right or wrong that is important. It is how much money you lose when you're wrong and how much money you make when you're right. That is said by George Soros. What is up, guys? This is KOJOFOREX, aka GBP Legend, aka Sniper Trader, aka King of Blues. I'm here again with another dope YouTube video. This time is something that you guys have never seen me do before. It is basically titled What I Learned from George Soros and How I Applied It in My Trading Style. So most of you may know in my old apartment that I had on my wall a list of great traders that I was actually looking up to. And one of the most prominent people that I looked up to in the world of trading was George Soros. So if you really want to know about George Soros, you can go on Wikipedia and then there's a whole history and information about him. But in this video, I'm going to tell you guys basically his trading principles that I actually acquired, learned from, and then applied it practically in how I analyze the market and think about the market. So most of you that follow me on Instagram may also be very familiar with this book. If you don't follow me on Instagram, it will be to your own benefit to actually do that, right? My Instagram handle is KOJOFOREX, KOJOFOREX. So in this book, you guys know that from the time I actually started trading, I have about 4 trading diaries that I keep all my journals in, and one of those books is actually this one, right? So I have a whole history of a lot of traders that I look up to in this book, which I documented when I started learning about these mentors. So let me read to you guys one of the key things that I jotted down in an interview that he had granted in the past. George Soros says, "My approach works not by making valid predictions, but by allowing me to correct false ones," right? And then you must understand that before you can even correct false predictions, then it means that you have a lot of assets under management, right? You guys must also understand that George Soros was a hedge fund manager. Typically, bubbles have an asymmetric shape. The boom is a long and slow start. It accelerates gradually until it flattens out, and again during the twilight period. The bust is a short and steep because it involves the forced liquidation of unsound position. Disillusionment turns into panic, reaching its climax in the financial market. Now, it may sound a little bit complex to a lot of you, but let me apply what I just read to you in the market, right? So simply, what he meant to say is that in this paragraph, he was trying to explain how bubbles occur, right? You guys may have not known about the fact that bubbles do occur in the world of financial market. You have the tulipmania bubble, the dot-com bubble, and so on, right? Even quite recently, most people were predicting that cryptocurrency was a bubble, specifically looking at what Bitcoin. So I kind of relate what George Soros says in this paragraph in terms of how bubbles do really occur, right? So let's look at it practically with what he said. So if you understand what I read to you guys with respect to how George Soros understands how bubbles do occur, right? You guys may understand that he says, well, typically bubbles have asymmetric shape. The boom is long and slow to start, right? So if you guys understand how Bitcoin started, right, you guys understand that what Bitcoin started slowly, right, from that price that it was open just around here, right, barely less than $100, right, barely about $1, right, and then this thing started moving slowly, just like George Soros points out. It accelerates until it flattens out during the twilight period. This is exactly how we see the shape. And then because the boom is strong, we kind of have like that continuous push acceleration. You see how Bitcoin eventually started rising from literally no value all the way to hitting about 20,000, right? 20,000, which was the peak in the initial years. This was around 2017, 2018. The bust is short and steep, and because it involves a forced liquidation of unsound position, a lot of people really panicked during the bust, you know. So here everybody was thinking, oh, Bitcoin is going to go to, you know, 30,000, 40,000. But all of a sudden people started seeing what that big bearish candle for Bitcoin here, and then there was that panic selling, right? So the back is what very short and steep, and then you can see that with the bust it came literally just down, and this is where everybody thought this was the end of Bitcoin, right? So everybody thought, yeah, look at the way people are, you know, selling Bitcoin is a fast, Bitcoin is you know, everybody was literally liquidating their position, right? Lo and behold, then we had what Bitcoin hitting 40,000 and holding there as a major support, right? So still on explaining crash, George Soros continues to say what every bubble has 2 components: an underlying trend that prevails in reality and a misconception relating to the trend. When a positive feedback develops between the trend and a misconception, a boom bust process sets in motion, right? So if you really look at Bitcoin from its beginning that I was showing you, right, there is that boom bust process that sets in motion, right? Boom bust in the sense that what it goes up, it drops, it goes up, it drops, right? Just like we're seeing here, right? Bitcoin, it hits, let's say $500, then it drops to what 370, then it goes again to what 700, then it drops again back to what 540, and so on and so forth, right? So the boom bust scenario, that's basically what we call the boom bust. You know, it just goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down, right? The process is liable to be tested by negative feedback along the way, right? So negative feedback is basically where people say, oh, this is a fast, this is, you know, this is a crash, this is a scam. You know, people are just literally saying all sort of negative things about, you know, that particular asset, right? And if it is strong enough to survive these tests, right, if that asset is strong enough to survive this test, both the trend and the misconception will be reinforced, just like we saw with Bitcoin, right? So it kept going, eventually, rose all the way up, like I explained to you briefly, right? Hit 20,000, dropped to 4,000. Everybody thought Bitcoin was literally coming back to zero, and then what happened? The misconception was reinforced. The whole misconception about Bitcoin was reinforced, and we saw it hit what? 12,000, came back to what? 4,000, and then finally we saw that massive big push of Bitcoin running all the way, right? All the way to what? 64,000, right? Which is like insane if you really understand what Soros meant by theory of reflexivity and understand this. You can clearly see that by his theory of reflexivity, there's no way Bitcoin is now a bubble again, right? Because the trend has reinforced itself, which is very, very important for you to understand in the financial market. Now, let's look at Soros's opinion when it comes to risk taking, right, and being wrong, right? So again, he says that he works with hypothesis. He says what? I work with hypothesis. I form a thesis about an anticipated sequence of events, and then I compare the actual cause of events with my thesis. That gives me a criterion by which I can evaluate my hypothesis. The prevailing wisdom is that markets are always right. I take the opposite position, right? He says that what everybody thinks that the market is always right? If the market is going up, you cannot challenge the market. The market should be right. But he takes the opposite position. And I keep saying that before you can take this kind of bold step and then say something like this, unless you're sitting on a wildly powered cash, right, under your asset under management. I assume that the market are always wrong. Soros says that he always assumes that the market is wrong. Even if my assumption is occasionally wrong, I use it as a working hypothesis. So with him, rather than following the norm, which is like, the market are always right, you can't challenge the market, he always stands from the, contrarian point of view that the market is always wrong, and then he wants to correct those markets. Now, this statement alone is very powerful. If you think about the fact that Soros profited $1 billion on a single day when he shorted the pound versus the USD. With him, with what I just read to you, he says what he always believes that the market is always wrong, and then he comes in to correct the market. Just like we had the history in the 1993s where the UK was part of the ERM, which was the exchange rate mechanism, and then at a point in time, a lot of things weren't really sitting right, and then Soros anticipated that one way or the other, UK would have to leave the ERM system, which will actually, devalue the currency. So he actually went ahead to bet $10 billion on shorting the pounds, and in that action alone, he was able to profit $1 billion in a single day, right? So we always call him the man who broke the Bank of England. If you don't know about that history, you can also go ahead and read more about it or watch other videos on YouTube as well. Now, again, in another example, Soros and his protege, which is Stanley Druckenmiller, also went ahead to short EURUSD at a point in time where they anticipated that the European Union was going to announce a zero interest rate for the euro-based economy or euro-based currencies. And then with that alone, it meant that what the euro was going to really drop in value, and then he applied that practically in shorting euro against USD in a particular year that actually led to about 3,000 pips. So I'm going to show you guys practically in the chart as well. So this is me looking at the chart on a weekly time frame, right? So at this point, you must understand that Soros and his people are position traders, right? These people can hold position in a particular trade for up to a year, right? So they were actually monitoring euro, and then at that point where they were monitoring euro, they anticipated that what the European Union was planning on reducing interest rate to zero. As at that point, we had never seen any country reduce their interest rate all the way to zero before, right? So it was actually more like the first in history. And then around this point in time where the market was making that zigzag was where they were having, that continuous talks with the euro, anticipating that it could possibly hit zero, right? And then this is where Soros says what he and his team forms a thesis, right? And then with the thesis, they do their technical analysis, and then when the thesis conforms with the technicals, that is where they land their ammunitions and then go hard on the market and profit incredibly well from it, right? So we can see that just around here, where it was around 2014 thereabout, where European Union actually announced the first zero interest rate, Soros and his team actually went ballistic on this chart, shorted this market all the way from this region, and then stayed on this market. This was actually a 1 year fall, right? If you backtest this, you're going to see that the euro USD actually tanked from this area all the way to hitting this psychological level of 1.0 right? As at the time that George Soros and Druckenmiller shorted this Euro USD as around this area, right? George Soros also says risk taking is painful. Either you're willing to bear the pain yourself or you try to pass it on to others. Anyone who is in the risk taking business but cannot face the consequences is no good, right? If you're in the risk taking business, you gotta accept the consequence that, oh, I took this risk, I'm wrong, I lose my money, that's it. You don't want to push it onto another person, lay your anger up on another person, or all those kind of things, right? That's what George Soros says. Soros also says, what, to others, being wrong is a source of shame, but to me, recognizing my mistake is a source of pride, right? So if he analyzes market is wrong, he understands that recognizing his mistake is a source of pride, right? So I really actually learned this, right, in terms of my community, people that are centrist too and all that, right? When I take a loss, I understand that, yeah, I was literally wrong in the market. Even George Soros at his height can actually be wrong in the market. How much more me, KOJOFOREX, who is still like, that student of the market for the past 8 to 10 years now. And one thing that I really like about George Soros is one thing that he points out. He says, what, I'm only rich because I know when I'm wrong. I basically have survived by recognizing my mistakes. Most people do not want to recognize their mistake. How do we understand this? In the sense that even when they are wrong in the market, they want to keep holding that losing position. The market can keep going and going and going against them until eventually they are washed out of the market and then they lose their money, right? So that's why I keep saying that, what, stop loss is very important. You always want to maintain that point in time where you want to say that, well, I am wrong in the market can take me out here, I don't want to go any further in this trade. And then if you cannot recognize where you're going to be wrong, you're literally never going to survive in the financial market. So yeah, guys, this is a brief history of me telling you in depth about what I've learned from George Soros in my trading years, right? I believe you guys love this type of video. If you want me to do more of this kind of videos, smash the like button, share it with your friends. If you want to see more about people that I've learned from, George Soros, Druckenmiller, Paul Jones, Jesse Livermore and all that, click on the link in the description to join the Telegram community. Also smash the like button, subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Also follow me on all social media, KOJOFOREX, right? KOJOFOREX. And also let me point out to you guys that I'm literally very less active on Facebook, and I've seen a lot of scam going on my Facebook. So if you get anybody messaging your Facebook, you should understand that it's literally not from me. I barely reply on Facebook. I'm even hardly on Facebook. But if you want to reach me, simply message me on Telegram or on Instagram at KOJOFOREX. Join the Telegram community by clicking in the link in the description for you to join the KOJOFOREX Telegram family, which has over 22,000, almost 23,000 members. I share a lot of trade signals there for free and educational content as well, right? So without saying much, I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you love this one. Peace out.